Thank you very much, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Crapo, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you very much for inviting me and Undersecretary Cohen to discuss the details of the joint plan of action agreed to by our P5+1 partners and Iran. I also want to especially thank Chairman Johnson for your leadership on this issue over the past weeks and months, and this committee's support through many months and years in bringing Iran to the table through unprecedented sanctions. Our collaboration on sanctions is what has brought Iran to the table. However, it is important to underscore that what we do from this point forward is just as critical, if not more so, in terms of testing Iran's intentions. In that regard, I look forward to continued consultations over the coming weeks and months, and I'm available to any member of this committee at any time for a conversation. Today, I want to give you the facts about the joint plan of action so you can judge its merits for yourself. The Iranian nuclear program is one of the most serious threats to U.S. national security and to our interests in the Middle East. Thanks to sanctions and a firm and united position from the P5+1, we have reached an understanding that is the most significant step to curb Iran's nuclear program in nearly a decade. Put plainly, this understanding is profoundly in America's national security interest, and it does make our regional partners safer and more secure. The agreement establishes a sequence 6-month framework designed to block near-term Iranian pathways to a nuclear weapon while creating space for us through a diplomatic process to reach a long-term, comprehensive solution, which is what we all want. As the President has said repeatedly, we will ensure, and he will ensure, that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon. The understanding ensures the development of Iran's nuclear program will halt, and the program will be rolled back as we negotiate that comprehensive solution. Indeed, upon implementation in the coming weeks, the agreement immediately halts progress of the Iranian nuclear program, rolls back key elements of that program, and introduces unprecedented monitoring into Iran's nuclear activities. Taken together, these measures will prevent Iran from progressing toward a nuclear weapon over the next 6 months and increase our ability to detect any move toward an Iranian nuclear breakout or diversion of materials to a covert program. Let me now walk you briefly through the key elements of this first step in detail. First, Iran has committed to halt meaningful progress of its enrichment program. Under the terms of this agreement, Iran cannot increase its enrichment capacity. It cannot build new enrichment facilities. Iran cannot install more centrifuges of any type, operate more centrifuges, or replace existing centrifuges with more advanced types. Iran must limit centrifuge production to only those needed to replace damaged machines, meaning Iran cannot expand its stockpile of centrifuges. And Iran's stockpile of 3.5% enriched uranium must be the same at the end of the 6-month period as it is at the beginning. Second, during this initial phase, Iran will roll back key aspects of its program. Specifically, Iran must cease all enrichment over 5%. Iran must remove certain equipment that is used to more efficiently enrich uranium over 5%, and Iran must neutralize its entire 20% stockpile, diluting it to a lower level of enriched uranium or converting it to oxide for fuel for the Tehran research reactor. Third, Iran cannot advance work on the plutonium track. Iran cannot commission the heavy water reactor under construction at Arak. Iran cannot transfer fuel or heavy water to the reactor site. Iran cannot test additional fuel or produce more fuel for the reactor. Iran cannot install remaining components for the reactor, and Iran cannot construct a facility for reprocessing spent fuel. That's critical because without reprocessing, Iran cannot separate plutonium from the spent fuel and therefore cannot obtain any plutonium for use in a nuclear weapon. In sum, even in this initial phase, this first step, this plan halts each of the three potential pathways to a weapon that have long concerned us and our closest allies. It eliminates Iran's stockpile of 20% enriched uranium. It stops installation of centrifuges, especially Iran's most advanced centrifuge design, and prevents accumulation of more 3.5% enriched uranium. And it ensures that the Arak reactor cannot be brought online. Some have said we should be skeptical that Iran will live up to these commitments. Quite frankly, we completely agree. That is why the foundation of the agreement is not built on trust, but on verification. The verification mechanisms are unprecedented and comprehensive. Iran must permit daily access by the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors to the facilities at Natanz and Fordo. They must permit more frequent inspections at the Arak reactor. Iran must allow access to centrifuge assembly workshops, including rotor production workshops and storage facilities. Iran must allow access to uranium mines and mills and provide design information for the Arak heavy water reactor. Significantly, these monitoring measures will provide additional warning of breakout and add significant new checks against the diversion of equipment for any potential covert enrichment program. It will also help us to verify that Iran is in fact living up to the commitments outlined in detail under the agreement. In exchange for these concrete actions by Iran, as Undersecretary Cohen will explain in detail, the P5+1 will provide limited, temporary, and reversible relief while maintaining the core architecture of our sanctions regime, including key oil and banking sanctions. Sanctions pressure, moreover, will continue to increase over the 6 months of this initial phase, and we will continue our vigorous enforcement of existing sanctions. Moreover, the U.S. trade embargo remains in place. UN Security Council sanctions remain in place. All sanctions related to Iran's military program, state sponsorship of terrorism, and human rights abuses and censorship remain in place. And if Iran fails to meet its commitments, we are prepared to ramp up sanctions, and we will have then the international consensus that is essential for any increased pressure to work. As the President has said, as the Chairman outlined, now is not, we believe, the time to introduce new sanctions, because doing so could risk derailing the promising first step outlined above, alienate our allies, and risk unraveling the coalition that enabled effective sanctions enforcement. Finally, in assessing the agreement on its merits, it is important to compare where we will be in 6 months under its provisions compared to where we would be without it. Without this plan, Iran's program would continue to advance. Iran would spin thousands of additional centrifuges, install and spin next-generation centrifuges that compress breakout times, advance its plutonium program by producing fuel for the Arak reactor and install remaining components. It could grow its stockpile of 20% enriched uranium, all without the powerful tools of intrusive and unprecedented inspections to help detect breakout. With this understanding, the Joint Plan of Action, as I have explained, we halt the progress of Iran's nuclear program, roll it back in key aspects, block the most likely pathways to weaponization, all while creating space over the next 6 months to pursue the comprehensive solution we all want. Finally, let me conclude by making one thing clear. Our policy with regard to Iran has not changed. We will stop Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. We will support our friends and partners in the region and counter Iran's destabilizing activities around the world. And we will continue to support the fundamental rights of all Iranians. We are working hard, for example, to ensure the UN General Assembly condemns Iran's human rights practices this month. Our sanctions on Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism remain in place. Our sanctions on human rights abusers will continue. And we will also remain committed, Mr. Crapo and all other senators, to reuniting Saeed Abedini, Amir Hekmati, and Robert Levinson with their families. As Secretary Kerry has said, one day is too long to be in captivity, and one day for any American citizen is more than any American, including this American, wants to see anyone endure. So I look forward to consulting closely with Congress, and I welcome this opportunity to discuss these important issues with you. After Secretary Cohen, I am happy to take your questions.